Hi everybody, today we're going to talk about parallel and perpendicular lines. So I thought we would start by looking at some lines. Right now I have a line that has a slope equal to 2. What you can't see is there's actually a second line on this screen that also has a slope of 2. Notice that these lines are now not touching. Even if I move the line around, make it a little higher, make it a little lower, that slope of 2 keeps those two lines apart. They're both growing with the same slope. I can change the slope of the line, and they will continue not to touch. So they will both have that same slope even as I move them around, and they stay parallel. If I made them both have a slope of 0, I would have two horizontal lines, and again, I can see that distance between them. That distance can change. It can get closer together, can get farther apart, and we can put them on top of each other and have just one line. But what we see is that idea that how does it grow? How does the y change? How does the x change? It stays the same because their slopes are equal. So if lines are parallel, they're going to cross. And what we want to talk about is when do they cross at 90-degree angles. So I have two lines. You can see the slopes. This one has a -1/2 right now, and this one has a +1/2. And they intersect at a 53.13-degree angle. So let's move one of the lines around. I'm going to move the bottom line. And I can see as I move it, the angle between the two lines is increasing. So I'm going to increase it until it gets to be 90 degrees. So we can see it's 90 degrees, it turned into this nice little box. Let's look at the slopes of the lines now. I have a -0.5 and I have a +2. So a couple things to point out there. First, I see the signs are different. One's negative, one's positive. So one's decreasing, one's increasing. Another thing to think about is if I wrote 0.5 as a fraction, it would be 1/2. So that 1/2 compared to 2 is important. So I moved the lines again. I made the first one have -1 and the second one have +1. I have a positive and a negative. I also have that 1 and -1. We could write them as reciprocals, and I'm going to show you that when we go back to the slides. But I think it'd be nice to do at least one more. So I'm changing the slope of the first line to be -0.25, and then I'm going to move the second line around until I can get a 90-degree angle. So watch as I move it. I have to scroll in a little bit to give myself enough room. Okay, and now I got it to 90 degrees as the angle of intersection. I have -0.25 and I have +4. So again, I'm going to write those down when we go back over to the slides to show you what is this relationship. But hopefully you can see if I do 1/4, it's 0.25. So I have some relationship between the slopes that form the 90-degree angle. So let's kind of summarize what we talked about so far. When I have parallel lines, they're going to have the same slope. With perpendicular lines, if I have one line with the slope of m, then a perpendicular line will have a slope that's equal to -1/m. So this is called a negative reciprocal. What I showed you over in the graphs is we had -2, and then we had 1/2, or we had -1/4, and then we had +4. So there's two ways to look at this. There's one way that says I take the number I have, I make it negative, so I put a negative outside, and then I make a fraction. So this is the negative reciprocal. So I flip it over, make it a fraction, and then I change the sign, so that's +1/2. Second one, same thing. I make it negative, I take 1 over, I divide by this number. So negative will become positive. That's the easy part. Remember, when I divide by a fraction, I'm just going to flip it over. So that negative reciprocal says flip it. Hopefully you kind of see it just kind of goes up, it kind of goes up. There's a second thing we can think about. The second thing we can think about is if I multiply the two numbers together, I get a -1. So -2 times 1/2 is -1. -1/4 times 4 is -1. So we have this interesting relationship between perpendicular lines. There is one relationship that doesn't hold true for that, and that's when we look at vertical and horizontal lines. Just know in general, a vertical line will be perpendicular to a horizontal line. We don't talk about the slopes in that instance because we know that a vertical line has an undefined slope, and I can't find the reciprocal of that. All right, so let's practice a little. Let's decide if these lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. So important that we're looking at the slopes of each line. So I have y equals 5x minus 1 and y equals 5x plus 6. So both of these lines have a slope of 5. So what do you think? Do you think they're parallel, perpendicular, or neither? Hopefully you said, I think they're parallel because they have the same slope, and you would be right. So let's try a second one. This one says I have y equals 4x plus 2, and I have y equals negative 4x plus 5. So this time, they're not the same. I have 4 and negative 4, so they're not parallel. To be perpendicular, we're expecting reciprocals, so we're thinking one of them should look like a fraction, and they don't, so my answer is neither. The last one I have is y equals 1/2 x plus 9, and I have 4x plus 2y is 6. Now this one, we can't tell immediately by looking at it. I can tell you the first line has a slope of 1/2, but I don't know what the slope of the second line is, so we need to take some time to rewrite it. So I'm going to solve for y by bringing the 4x over to the right side. I'm going to subtract it. I have 2y is negative 4x plus 6. Divide by 2, and you have to do that everywhere. So I have y is negative 2x plus 3. The only way I can tell the slope just by looking at a line is to put it in slope-intercept form. Now, this negative 2 is my slope. This is the relationship we want to see. I have a slope of 1/2, I have a slope of negative 2, and I'm looking at those two things. The signs are opposite, that's good. I can also see that they're reciprocals, so that remember I had those two choices. I can do negative 1 divided by the slope of 1, or I can say multiply them together to get negative 1. So two ways to check that out. So let's circle this and say these two are perpendicular. All right, so let's write some equations of lines. The first one we're going to do is find the equation of the line perpendicular to f of x equals 4x plus 1 through the point 2, 3. From the 4x plus 1, I want to say I know my slope is 4. So the slope of a perpendicular, and I kind of write it as an upside down t, is negative 1 over 4. So I change the sign and I flip it over. I'm going to use the point slope form of a line to come up with my equation. So I'll do y minus 3 is equal to negative 1/4 of x minus 2. Now I started, this is called point slope. I'm going to end in slope-intercept form. So let's write y minus 3 is negative 1/4 of x. I have a negative times a negative, that's positive. Let's write down 1/4 times 2. Y minus 3 is negative 1/4 of x. 1/4 times 2, that's 2 over 4, which we can reduce 2 over 4 to 1/2. Now I'm going to add the 3, so I'm adding the 3. So I have y equals negative 1/4 of x plus 3. I need to give it a common denominator, which would be 2. So 3 times 2 over 2 is 6 over 2. So I'm adding 6 over 2 to 1 over 2, which gives me 7 over 2. So this would be our slope-intercept form of the line. Let's try one that's parallel. I have 4x minus 2y is 7, and I want to go through the point 5, 2. Now, first thing I need to know about this is what is the slope. So let's say 4x minus 2y is 7. I need to solve for y. So that says push the 4x to the right side. Negative 2y is negative 4x plus 7. Divide by negative 2. And I think it's important you divide each piece, so term by term. I have y equals negative 4 over negative 2 is 2x. And then you can leave 7 over 2, that's fine. I'm grabbing from this the 2, that is my slope. Now this time we're saying parallel. So if my slope is 2, the slope of the parallel, which kind of looks like an 11, is also 2. Let's go back to that point slope form. So I'm going to do y minus 2 is equal to 2 times x minus 5. So I did y minus y1 is m times x minus x1. I have y minus 2. I'm going to distribute, right? Multiply the 2 by both of them. So I have 2x minus 2 times 5. This says y minus 2 is 2x minus 10. The last step is to push the 2 over to the right, get y by itself. So y is equal to 2x minus 8. Now the reason why I keep going all the way to slope-intercept form is if I wanted to graph this. Slope-intercept form is where I want to graph from. The negative 8 is the b, which is the y-intercept. So I would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Way down here at negative 8, there would be my intercept. And then this 2, this is my slope. Now, anytime I look at slope, I really want it to be a fraction, so I would call that 2 over 1. So every time I go up 2, I go over 1, and then that would help me draw the line. So I went up 2 over 1, there's my slope. So I hope these 2 more problems help with your homework. If you have any questions, of course, let me know.